Hi there, in this video I'm going to be talking about the eclipses of 2019. Hi there, my name's Alison Price. I'm an astrologer in Vancouver, Canada. I've been doing astrology for many years and helping people like you. I've got a short series going on about the astrology of 2019, and in this video we're going to be talking about the eclipses for 2019. If you're new here, please subscribe and give me a like and press the little bell so you're notified every time one of my videos comes out, because I don't want you to lose out. There are two other videos in this series so far. I've got one there on retrogrades. I'll put the link up there and below, and there's also one on the planetary ingresses for 2019. So this year there's actually going to be 5 eclipses. There's going to be 3 solar eclipses and 2 lunar eclipses, and I'm just going to go through a couple of points about eclipses in general. I'm also going to say that the times and dates on these videos is set for universal time, so you can work it back from there. Eclipses happen when the sun gets close to one of the lunar nodes, the north node or the south node. And there are specific degrees where eclipses will occur as the sun is getting closer and closer and closer. In solar eclipses, what happens is that the actual moon moves in front of the sun, such as in the diagram here. The sun's path is known as the plane of the ecliptic, and the moon's path is known as the lunar path. And where those two cross, that's actually where the nodes are. So nodes are points in the sky. They are not planets, but you'll see them in the chart with these two symbols, and I'll show them there. So the first solar eclipse for 2019 will be on January the 6th at 15 degrees Capricorn. In this chart you can see there in the red circle you've got the sun exactly conjunct the moon there at 15 degrees, and there are also a couple of other planets close by, and we're going to talk about that. The way to interpret eclipses is to consider the conjunctions and the oppositions first and foremost, and it is in a very rare occasion I would look at other aspects coming in to the actual eclipse points. You really want to pay attention to all conjunctions and oppositions when you're talking about eclipses. So a solar eclipse occurs when the moon moves in front of the sun. So when we're looking from Earth, we can see the moon moving in front. Here we go. We can see the moon moving in front of the sun, and it obscures the sun. Now we wouldn't necessarily see it every single time, because the footprint that the moon's shadow makes on the Earth is typically very narrow, and the moon's shadow will sweep across the Earth in an arc, and you won't necessarily see the full obscurity of the solar eclipse each time there's a solar eclipse. If you love eclipses, write eclipse in the comments below. All eclipse charts are cast on 0 Aries, so Aries is on the ascendant position. We're using full signs there as well. This is because even though the eclipse occurs at one time point, it will be different for me in Vancouver to it is for you in Hong Kong. So that's why you always cast the actual eclipse charts for the specific point, unless of course you're talking about it within your city or doing the horoscopes for just down the road. So with this particular chart, we can see we have a conjunction there. The solar eclipse is in Capricorn, that is the symbol there, the first symbol, and then the solar eclipse is actually at the south node, which is the one that looks like the U, and the moon is eclipsing the sun. That is the symbol for the eclipse. That is the symbol for the solar eclipse right there. It looks like a conjunction, but it's filled in. And bracket that, because that's the eclipse. Now that eclipse is conjunct Saturn in Capricorn, which is a very powerful position for Saturn anyway, and then it's conjunct Pluto as well, and on a milder note, sextile Neptune. So that's the little blue line going out to Neptune. But the main point of this eclipse is that it's in Capricorn, it's conjuncting Saturn, and it's conjuncting Pluto. Now some of you may know that in 2019 there is a massive stellium multiple conjunction in Capricorn. It's going to be of Saturn, Pluto and Jupiter later on in the year, but already we're starting to feel the beginnings of this conjunction, although Saturn and Pluto are not actually conjunct yet. Saturn's at 11 and Pluto's at 20. It's coming together, but both of them are conjoining the eclipse point, so they are being embedded into this particular eclipse. So that's the solar eclipse for January the 6th. It's dominant in Capricorn, ruled by Saturn. The second solar eclipse for 2019 is on July the 2nd at 10 degrees Cancer. Now in this chart you can see this is the total solar eclipse. You can see that the sun is conjunct the moon. That's all in the red circle, and there is the symbol there for the North Node. So we know this is a North Node eclipse, and if you cast your mind back 6 months ago in the January, when the sun was on the other side of the zodiac, that was the eclipse at the South Node. Now we have the eclipse at the North Node. In this particular eclipse we've got the Cancer at the North Node, moon eclipsing the sun, and opposition Saturn. So in this particular eclipse, the actual conjunction of the sun and the moon is picking up the opposition to Saturn that we heard about in the 6 months previously, but not the one to Pluto. So that's showing us that it's tightening up. Saturn's there now at 17 degrees and the eclipse is around 10. So that's the degrees. The Oprah opposition is 8 degrees, so Saturn's well within that. So Saturn is now still having a little bit of influence on this second eclipse. So because this eclipse occurs in Cancer, it means that the moon is ruling the eclipse because the moon rules Cancer, and that will bring the totally different flavor of the Cancer onto this eclipse, bringing in a strong flavor from Capricorn, from the Saturn, strong in Capricorn as well. So the third solar eclipse for 2019 is actually in December. So we had one in January, one in July, and one in December, and you can see they are 6 months apart because the sun takes 6 months to get round to each node. So we're actually splitting it. We talk about eclipse seasons, and here we've got one at the beginning, full one, and then the nibble bit of the one at the end as well. The third solar eclipse for 2019 will be on December the 26th. That's Boxing Day at 4 degrees Capricorn. So there's the chart. Let's have a look at this chart. So we have the moon is conjunct the sun in Capricorn at 4 degrees. Again, we know that this is at the South Node. You can see the South Node symbol right there. So we have the moon eclipsing the sun, brackets, and that actual eclipse is then conjunct Jupiter. So this is different now because Jupiter's now moved into Capricorn. Jupiter has now moved into Capricorn, coming right up, and it's crushing in, and it's going to be there. Jupiter's moving into position for the actual stellium that's coming up, the Jupiter-Saturn-Pluto stellium. That's going to be a feature of the end of the year of 2019. And the only other feature we have to that is the trine from Uranus. Now that's the light blue line. I've put that in, even though I have to tell you I'm not very keen on this. Aspects to eclipses are conjunctions, oppositions. The other aspects are coming in, and they're secondary to the main thing. The main thing is you want to look at where is the eclipse happening, which sign is it in, who is this affecting, which planet rules this sign, and any conjunctions to the eclipse, you look at those first, and then you consider any opposition. So this particular eclipse has no oppositions. It only has the conjunction from Jupiter, which we're going to take because Jupiter's in Capricorn, but I have noted that it has the trine to Uranus, and if I had more time on my hands or I was looking into it in a deeper way, I would then consider the trine from Jupiter. But the point is that eclipses, the nature of eclipse is that the planets are in syzygy, which is they are lining up sun, earth, moon, sun, moon, earth, and this is the line. That's where eclipses come from, the plane of the ecliptic as the sun is moving round. So because the nature of eclipses is conjunctions and oppositions, conjunctions at solar eclipses and oppositions at lunar eclipses, those really are the aspects that are important when you're doing eclipse work. And yes, of course, you can look at that trine in from Uranus, but it is not the first thing I would consider. And really, what I'm trying to say is that it depends how much time you have to look at your work. But if you're going to do tight astrology, good astrology, and meaningful astrology, stay on the high roads and leave those back roads for another day. So let's have a look at the two lunar eclipses that are happening in 2019. The first lunar eclipse is on January the 21st at 0 degrees Leo. And this lunar eclipse is associated with that first solar eclipse that happened in January, because eclipses come from the solar first, and they possibly have one or two lunar eclipses in front of or behind. In a lunar eclipse, the planets line up, sun, earth, moon. So the Earth is going around the sun, the moon is going around the Earth, and at this particular point the moon moves into the shadow of the Earth. It's shown in the diagram, and it can be slightly or deeply, but anyway, and that's how a lunar eclipse occurs. So anyone who can see the moon from Earth, therefore if it's night at the time of the eclipse, for you will be able to look at the moon and see the shadow that the moon is moving into, the shadow of the Earth. This lunar eclipse on January the 21st is in Leo, and it's at the North Node. And now you can see that we have the sun is opposition the moon. Those are the two absolutely directly opposition. Eclipses occur, we say where the eclipse happens where the moon is, because if the moon's at the conjunction, that's where it's happening. But if the moon is in, if we are doing the opposition, then it's actually the moon's position, which is in Leo, which is an interesting combination going on, because we've got the sun in Aquarius where it's weak, and then we have the moon in Leo where it's not that strong, but the sun is strong. So the sun is actually dominating this lunar eclipse, which is kind of interesting. So there on our diagram I have got there, the moon is making a lunar eclipse to the sun. Now there is also a conjunction to Mercury, to the sun, to the moon. So the Mercury is actually conjuncting the sun, obviously oppositioning the moon, but there is a square to Uranus as well. So that is interesting in as much, although I have said already that you really want to concentrate on the conjunctions and the oppositions when you've got an eclipse going on like that, because it really means that Mercury is opposing the moon as well, and it's conjunct the sun, and it's in Aquarius. The sun is in Aquarius, Mercury is in Capricorn. But here we have the situation now where Uranus is squaring the two luminaries. So it's creating a T-square. That red triangle in that diagram is actually a T-square, and creating a little bit of tension coming through there. Again, it's not the first thing I would look at when we're looking at eclipses. You want to pay attention to where is the moon, what are its aspects, what sign is it in, which planet disposes the moon or rules that sign, and that will tell you everything you need to know about these eclipses. So the second and last lunar eclipse for 2019 is on July the 16th at 24 Capricorn. As I said, with a lunar eclipse you've got the sun, the Earth and the moon moves into the Earth's shadow. Now this is a more complicated lunar eclipse than the one we looked at earlier, because there's just more planets involved. So what we have is that the moon is at the South Node, and the moon is in Capricorn. So we've had this flavour of Capricorn Cancer, and that's because the lunar nodes are in Cancer Capricorn. That's why the eclipses are occurring in Cancer Capricorn. And what we have there is that Saturn is conjunct Pluto, because we're really into it now. It's coming, that big conjunction is coming together. Conjunct the moon, which is eclipsing the sun. And then from the sun's point of view, on that side, the other side of the chart, the sun is conjunct Mercury and conjunct Venus. Now, of course, this often occurs that the sun is conjunct Mercury and conjunct Venus. The sun is more frequently conjunct those two planets because they travel with the sun. They are always close to the sun, and the conjunction is the most prolific aspect from those two planets to the sun. However, this is the one and only eclipse for 2019 where both of them are actually coming in for the conjunction. So the sun is in Cancer, which is the moon's sign, and the moon is in Capricorn. The moon is in Capricorn. It's weak there because it's the sign of its detriment, but the moon rules Cancer where the sun is. So all of these the flavour of all of these eclipses has been Capricorn Cancer, except the one where it's actually in Leo. It's just slipped slightly over. So this is a more powerful lunar eclipse because we've not just got sun opposition moon, you've got moon conjunct Saturn and Pluto. Thank you very much. Some heavy hitting big planets in astrology opposing the sun, which is conjunct Mercury and Venus. So it's a powerful combination of planets. The closer your sun will be to the eclipse points will show how close it will occur for you. There are no other aspects pertaining at all to this lunar eclipse, and it makes it a very strong one. This is the eclipse that is probably going to have the most effect in 2019 due to the fact that it is engaging with 6 planets, the moon, Saturn and Pluto, and the sun, Mercury and Venus, and a lot of a lot of aspects of life will be combined into this eclipse. So that's a roundup of the 5 eclipses that are occurring in 2019. And this is the third part of a series of interesting things I'm doing about 2019. It's a guide for astrologers to know what to look at during the course of 2019. I've also created this handy downloadable Starzology 2019 guide, and it's the guide to ingresses, retrogrades and eclipses. And the previous 2 videos I did in this series, the one was on retrogrades, the other was on the ingresses, and this is a downloadable PDF that you can, there's a link below that you can get your copy, and it lists all the eclipses and all the things you need to know, the ingresses, all the retrogrades in it. It's just a handy guide. This is a good resource for you to start getting a grip on what's happening in astrologically in 2019, apart from all the nitty-gritties going on, because it's got the retrograde period so you can understand those. It's got the planetary ingresses, which is when planets are changing sign, and it also now has, of course, the eclipses, the dates for the eclipses and the time, so you can cast those charts yourself if you want to. So this is a guide. It's the Starzology Astrology Guide for 2019. It's a guide for astrologers. It's not a horoscope guide. It's one that is useful if you are an aspiring astrologer, and of course you have to be if you're watching this, right? If you have any questions about the eclipses that we discussed in this video or anything else astrologically, by the same token, do write your comments below. If you enjoyed this video, do consider subscribing, give me a like, or share it with other people. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. I also like to share with you some What Do Astrologers Do All Day segment, which is more about the astrologer's life. For those of you who are aspiring astrologers and want to try and move into professional astrology work and see what else do you do, are you reading all day? Well, no, we're not. We're out and about a bit in the city. I live in Vancouver, and I have a couple of time lapses I do want to share with you about the sunrise and the sunset, which is fascinating for me. I'm the sort of person who always wants to be awake before the sunrise, then I can look out of my window and watch the dawn rise, because then I know the sun's on the ascendant, the chart's moving up, I can see clearly what's going on. You can actually look outside and see planetary astrology in action. It's a great time of the day, sunrise.